afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the ICAO SkyTalks workshop series. So next up, with an explanation of the breadth of areas and activities TCB can support states with through a technical cooperation project, please join me in welcoming Daniel Souhami.
Before I start, I actually wanted to take this opportunity to thank the team from the SkyTalks. Probably you guys don't know, but they've been working very hard the past few weeks getting this ready, getting this room decorated and everything. So a round of applause for the guys at the SkyTalk team.
Thank you, Daniel. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Hey, at least a scholar, I don't know. So thank you for coming. My name is Daniel Souhami. I've been in TCB for a few years now. I'm going to be talking about how our field projects can support you, and in particular how TCB's mission and vision is essentially a way to accomplish the No Country Left Behind initiative that's been ongoing for a few years now, a couple of years. The goal of the workshop today is of course, for you to get a better idea of what TCB is, for those who don't know, but more importantly, why you should consider using TCB services and how you can accomplish this. So let's start. So here's our table of contents. And of course, why you would want to use TCB is the key element here. And if there's nothing else that you learned today, just learn this one. You know what? I'm going to go off script a bit here. Probably some people are familiar or can relate. A lot of times, friends or family, they ask me, where do you work? And I go, ICAO. And they're like, what, IKEA? I go, no. And they say, okay, what's ICAO? Is this a thing? I go, yes, Civil Aviation Organization. It's a UN agency. And they're, okay, then what do you do there? And I try to explain it to them. And then they're like, who's USOP? What's a SARP? I don't understand anything what's going on. So it's very frustrating. Maybe some colleagues here have similar conversations with their friends. So instead, I just give them this story, this analogy. I tell them, let's say you want to build a house. How are you going to go about it? Probably you're not going to build it yourself, right? He goes, no, I'll hire a contractor. And then that guy is going to have his team, right? He's going to have maybe an architect to do the design, and maybe then an engineer to look at structure. Then he's going to hire someone to excavate, do foundation, hire a different team to put up the woodwork, then a different team to lay the brick, another team to do the roof, electricians to do the wiring, plumbers to do the plumbing, interior decorators, so on and so forth. So he gathers these teams of experts and knowledgeable people, and they build a house. That is what TCB does. We're that contractor. You can come to us, and we can help you build that house. Except it's not a house we're building. It's a civil aviation system. And we can be there for the full house, or if you just need to change a window, we can be there just to change that window. So this is essentially what TCB does, and why you should consider it. So, as I mentioned, we provide assistance full spectrum of civil aviation, whether it's safety, security, environment, economic policy, the whole gambit. Full breadth, full width. Over 60 years of experience. TCB was created in 1952. That's actually over 65 years now. So we've accumulated a lot of wealth of knowledge, experience, lessons learned from previous projects that we're happy to impart in any new project. Full range of project structures offering maximum flexibility. This last word is key, flexibility. We can structure a project any which way to optimize the results, whether it's through experts, through nationals, through equipment, through training, a mix and match, all just a few, a long project, a short project, safety, security, whatever it is, we can make it. So those are the two things you really need to take away from this, that we're available for anything, everything, and we can customize the service to your need. Those are the two key things. If there's nothing else you take away from your time here in Montreal, take those two. Let's continue on why. We operate on cost recovery. We're part of ICAO. We're a UN agency. We're a non-for-profit. We have no commercial interest. In fact, you can come and ask us for a proposal, and it doesn't even cost you anything. Experience and economies of scale ensure price competitiveness. Like I mentioned before, because we've been around for so long, because we've been supporting so many states over so many years, These kind of experience and economies of scales help reduce costs that we pass on, of course, to the states. Objectives in full compliance with ICAO SARPs. Just like my story before, everything we do must be compliant with the SARPs. So there's no risk there. Provide a complete suite of services, the one-stop shop. Like I mentioned before, everything and flexibility, combine them together, one-stop shop. Come to us, no matter the issue, no matter the problem, no matter the challenge or the project you want to implement, there's a way we can support, and we're happy to do so. So I'm going to go briefly over how, or the services rather, that we provide. This was previously explained, and these slides, by the way, are going to be made available online, so you'll be happy to peruse them later. So here are the 4 services, or the 4 broad category of services TCB offers. Experts, nationals, I'll explain a bit more about the nationals, procurement of goods and services, and training through a different number of activities. And it so happens, this wasn't the intention at first, but now it kind of does look like a house. So I hope that the image works with you guys there and how we can provide the service and make it customizable to you. So let's start with the experts. So the experts, they fall into 2 broad categories. The first one is advisors. This is the classic consultants that will come over, give you some advice, maybe review a document, draft a new regulation, for example, or a manual, or whatever it is. And they come in, they give you this advice, this recommendation, and then the state does what they need to do with it. The second category, however, is not as well known. It's called the OPUS, operational support. These experts will functionally report to you, and they will be allowed to certify. So you can have flight inspectors, airworthiness inspectors, PEL experts, AGA certification. So you will give them authority to sign, to do inspection, surveillance, and certify on your behalf. And we have a few cases which I'm going to explain a bit later. So this is a service that's not always as well known, and believe me, it can be quite useful and practical. Advisors can be recruited for short-term, long-term. Short-term could be anything from a couple of weeks to do, for example, a gap assessment, to long-term for like 3-4 years. We have even experts that have been deployed to a single project for longer than that. These are some examples of what they would do. The OPUS also can be short-term or long-term. Usually they're there for a bit longer, though, at least 6 months, obviously, to accomplish these certification type tasks. The second type of service, the national personnel. This is another service that's not always understood or even known that it exists. But these essentially is, we can have personnel from your state recruited through the project. And there's a number of reasons why a state would want to do this. A lot of times it's to ensure a transition of staff to a new CAA structure, for example, so they can put them on their project and they will offer them UN salaries. This could help also be competitive so that there's no flight risk. A lot of times we had cases where projects where people were trained, but then the government salaries for that particular post level was low, so these staff left to private industry or to other countries. So all that capacity they built was lost. But having the staff under the project could be a good way to mitigate this. We even had DGs under the project, under the national professional. And they can be professionals or they could be support staff, either or. So those are some of the examples there. The third category of service, procurement of goods and services. Here are some of the advantages of the procurement services. There was a workshop on this also, and the slides are available online. Essentially, though, because we're UN, again, we're transparent. We have no commercial interests. We're objective. And we offer full turnkey service, from definition of needs all the way to oversight of the contract until warranty expiration. So this is a great service that also states should be encouraged to make use of. Here's just a few examples of the services within the procurement, like I mentioned, from the definition of needs, preparation of specs, we can launch the tenders, or the states can launch them. Again, mix and match, we can customize as needed. It could be a la carte, as we say, or the full turnkey, which is always our main recommendation, all the way to monitoring. Here are some examples. I'm not going to go through them. I just want you to see that we've procured many number of equipment related to civil aviation, and we procure them every year in many countries across the world. So we've gained a lot of experience. We know the tricks, the traps, if you will, and the advice we can give you. Like my colleague had said in his presentation, you know, you might purchase one radar this year or for the next 5 years. We're purchasing 10 a year. So we know the suppliers. We know what's key and how to reduce costs and get the best result, best value for money, as they say. In addition to goods, we can also procure services. So studies, civil aviation master plans, airport master plans, civil works supervision. And I have some examples coming up on all of these different kinds of services that we've procured. And this is also a good example to show how in one case we might recruit experts, for example, to do a master plan. And in another case, we'll procure and subcontract a company to do the exact same kind of service. So the flexibility is there. Finally, the fourth category, we're talking about training. Training could be done through fellowships. This is where we take nationals, send them to a training center, and then they go back. The actual fellowships can be done outside of the country, which is the sort of the traditional way. But more and more, we're doing in-country fellowships, so where the trainers go to the country. So this is obviously more cost-effective. It could be locally, internationally. It could be an individual that you want to send to a specialized training, for example, or a group of people to get a particular course training. In addition to that, as I mentioned, the in-country, we can also recruit experts to go and provide some seminars, workshops, OJT. This is key. And a lot of times our advisors or even our OPAS experts, while they're implementing whatever activity, whatever mandates that they have, they'll be doing OJT as well. This is very common in most of our projects. And finally, the last one is training by the equipment. This is standard in all the contracts we have, usually when you're procuring whether a simulator, a radar, ACC, whatever it is, obviously the supplier is going to provide training on that equipment. So this is always included. Now I'm going to go on the types of projects. Now this slide, all I want to really show here, I mean, you have the breakdown of the different strategic objectives. The distribution is not important. What's important for you to realize, the takeaway here is that we don't serve one or two strategic objectives, we serve all of them. So when I mentioned that TCB is really the instrument, or one of the principal instruments that ICAO has to support the No Country Left Behind initiative, here's the proof. Now, the main purpose of this workshop was to give you some examples, and that's what I mean to do right now. So I've broken them down into, I think, 8 different categories, broad categories of kind of projects that we implement. That being said, there's a lot of crisscross. Just because in your one category doesn't mean you might not also be in another. And you'll see some cases here. Now, the big one, of course, capacity building. This is very common. This is the main goal, obviously. We have a number of projects. Pretty much almost every project that TCB implements has an element of capacity building. But I've decided to highlight a few key success recently. So the first and the last one on the list are Kazakhstan and Uruguay. These are countries that had SSE until recently, and both countries benefited from TC projects. In the first case, for example, we had OPAS experts, and Ops and Air, and I think PEL also, that were there certifying AOCs. They did a lot of OJT as well. And by the way, a point I want to stress here too is that we don't work in pure isolation either. It's not like, oh, it's just TCB. No, this project, for example, had the full support of the regional office, Air Navigation Bureau. We had secondees also from other countries that did some training on site. So when you work with TCB, you're not just working with TCB. You have the full weight of the organization behind every project. So this is also a good point to take away here. Indonesia recently was upgraded to Cat 1. We also had a project there for many, many years. We had a project there for safety. We have another project there ongoing still on environment for capacity building there. We had a project also of developing their training capabilities. So it's also a state that's come to TCB for many, many years and continues to do so. And we're always happy to help. And we're very happy to see this good result, this positive result. And actually recently in the assembly, the representative of Indonesia spoke to our director and thanked him personally for TCB's involvement in Indonesia and achieving this good result. Establishment of CAAs, ANSPs, AIGs, so I just mentioned Cape Verde, but we have many others. Namibia is a big project we have currently, and they've recently transitioned to a new CAA, and we've actually established this project since 2008, and we're still there. There's big components also, and experts, both advisor capacity as well as OPUS. So we have some OPUS experts there sitting in directorships of the new structure for now. So this is an interesting case. It's a very comprehensive project, actually. Has also the training components, so fellowships and so on and so forth. So it's a very interesting project, and we're very happy with the progress that it's going with it. Argentina is a country that's used TCB services for a number of structural changes. New CAA, new air navigation service providers pretty recently. The creation of their AIG also has all been done through the TCB project. And in all cases, they've taken advantage of the national professional services I mentioned, where people could be recruited through the project to help assure the transition. So it's a very good case. Similar with Brazil over about 10 years ago or so, when they had a new CAA structure created. HR support to CAAs. So as I mentioned, these are a number of projects that use the national professionals or OPUS services that we offer to address whatever needs. So Saudi Arabia is a country, for example, that's used the TC project for many, many years now, over 20, I believe, using OPUS experts. So for certification, inspection, surveillance, and you know, the 3 implementation critical elements, if you will. They also have a lot of nationals that are recruited through the project. Namibia, as I mentioned. Somalia is a very interesting case for some that may know it. So obviously, because of the political situation, at some point, the UN Security Council mandated ICAO to take over the airspace because there was no capability right there. And through the council decided to pass this very delicate, difficult task to TCB, which we've been doing for many years. So this is a case where we have OPUS experts, we have nationals, procurement of equipment, training. In fact, all of the 4 components there, it's a very big project, it's very difficult. This is a project we also work with IATA. Another example where we're collaborating, and we've worked with UNDP for many years as well, where we collaborate with different organizations, not just the states. So it could be UN, it could be IATA, it could be, we could also subcontract. So for example, CAI from the UK or other such entities like that. Again, just to give you an example of how TCB can really serve as your agent, if you will, to articulate many kinds of different projects. Indonesia, as I mentioned, also had nationals. And again, Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia, and Peru, still today, these countries use the services of NPPs, as we call them, the nationals. Technical studies. So these are projects usually more short-term. Aeronautical study, for example, we have a few cases, India and Singapore, airport expansion, obstacle limitation surface studies. Mexico, feasibility study for the relocation of the new airport, which is, by the way, ongoing project for Mexico. Paraguay and Bangladesh recently also used our services to go from a public entity to private or PPP for their airport, so concession agreement. So they've used the services of our experts. Again, these were advisor experts, short-term or punctual needs, but we're still ongoing, in fact, still with Paraguay. Infrastructure. So of course, as we mentioned, we can procure equipment, and we've done so. So Tocumen Airport in Panama, La Aurora in Guatemala, we did new terminal. ASECNA recently, a couple of years ago, procurement of radars, I believe 16 of them, I can't quite remember, but it was big network. Argentina, Bahamas, Uruguay, all similar cases recently. Somalia, as I mentioned, new ACC, among other things that we procure on their behalf. And services. So, for example, e-passport, MRTD. We procured on behalf of Peru the whole system and generated quite a few savings for them, actually, on this case. Uganda, Civil Aviation Master Plan, Mexico, Thailand, India, feasibility studies. All of these cases, we used our procurement study. Except for the Mexico, we used experts. For the other ones, we used our procurement services to subcontract for companies to do that study. Jamaica, I saw, yeah. There it is. So we have expert recruited to help oversight implementation of new air navigation equipment there. So in that case, it's an expert. So the procurement side is being done by the state, and we're just providing expertise to support. Again, the diversity of options available. Training. So we have cases, for example, in Mexico, projects that are just for training. Some are pilots, ATC, and other kind of personnel like that. We have partnership with Spain and NAENA. For airport operations management. They organize workshops and seminars in Latin America. They also offer scholarships for people from Latin America to go and study in Madrid. So this is another example of partnership. And we have The developing country training program, just actually now last week at the Assembly, the Secretary General signed with the Minister of Transport in Korea the renewal of this agreement. So this is something we have with a few countries, Korea, Singapore, Thailand, Turkey, and where they offer spots for developing countries to go and benefit from the training in their training centers. So it's a very nice program that we've maintained for many years and continue to do so. Okay, so that was kind of a summary, if you will, or I just touched upon different types of projects. My main goal there was just to show you really the diversity, the range, and the flexibility of how TCB can support. I want to show now with this slide, I'm hoping to show anyway, the magnitude and the accomplishment of the Bureau, and really why you should at least consider using TCB if nothing else. So the first thing I want to point out here is the deployment of international experts, 777. If you calculate in a year the number of working days, if you discount weekends and public holidays, it's approximately 250 a year. And this is for 3 years. And if you divide the 777 by 3, it's approximately 250 per year. So if you stop and think about that for a second, that's one international expert deployed per day, per work day. And it's not the same kind of expert. No, it's an ops expert, an AvSec expert, economic policy, air law, someone from North America going to Africa, someone from Europe going to Latin America, or Latin America to Asia, or vice versa. Experts going from anywhere in the world to anywhere else in the world in any field of aviation. This is pretty amazing. Think about that for a second. In addition to deploying 250 experts per year, we're managing the contracts of almost 1,000 nationals per year. It's about 700, 800 a year. These are the nationals I mentioned before, even DGs, okay? And each one have their particularities because each state has their own issues, different salary grades, and so on and so forth. So that's a major feat. Add to that this figure, which blows my mind every time I see it. 13,657 personnel benefited from training through TCB project in those 3 years. That's a staggering figure. I ask if any other entity, any other organization in the world can achieve these numbers. In fact, I challenge you to find me something similar. These are very good figures. Equipment, suppliers, and fellowships, these two figures obviously support the 13,000 one. Finally, procurement of equipment, roughly 250 million in that period. So it's roughly 80, 90 million a year. What's more important than that is not the value of the equipment, but the quantity and the diversity of equipment we're buying, which is not a figure I've put there, but we're buying over 50 different types of equipment per year in different states, again, with different challenges, different requirements, and yet we're still doing it, and we've been doing it for over 60 years. Here's a map. You can find this map actually in the journal that's available, the TC Review that recently was published. And every country in which we've had a project, whether it's a project of procurement infrastructure, capacity building, or a regional project. I didn't talk a lot about regional projects, but we also have projects where a number of states combine together, pool their resources for a common benefit for the whole region. So they're all there. It's probably easier for me to tell you which states we have not been in than the reverse. But this is just, again, I want to stress and try to highlight the magnitude, the reach, the capability, and the experience TCB has, and urge you to use it, because we're here. It's our mandate as part of ICAO to serve the states. We never say no. Never. To summarize, here are the advantages. It's a recap of what I've said a bit in the previous slides, especially the first two. It's there mostly so you can see it again when you check online this presentation. I wanted to stop here for a second, just before I end, because I got the nod that I have a few minutes left only. I'm painting a very nice picture. It seems like everything is rosy. the truth is not everything is perfect, right? Projects are hard. There's challenges. There's uncertainties. There's risks. And that's fine. That's why we're here. If they were easy, you wouldn't need TCB. The fact is, there's a lot of work that's put into them. And these figures that we achieve, they're not achieved on a whim. They're achieved because we have a team of dedicated professionals who really put a lot of hard work, a lot of passion into the Bureau. And there's no commercial interest. There's no profit. There's no bonus. We're doing it because we want to. And we're here for the States to make sure that really no country is left behind. And I know a couple of you were asking me, why do I have this apple? Well, I'm going to eat it later, maybe. But the reason I have this apple is I wanted to end the presentation with a quote. So it goes a bit like this. The roots of hard work are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. And again, if you look at the results that we've achieved, it's a pretty sweet fruit. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. If there are any questions.